We are finally back and we are live. It is Fight IQ presented by RotoWire MMA, and we are here for UFC Moncton, breaking down all things for DFS and DraftKings. We're going to get back into some DFS MMA after a long break. I am your host, the Daily Fantasy Sniper. So happy to be back for this appetizer. I don't hate this card like some people. It's fine for a fight night.
Sean freezes up.
But it is podcast. Chris Olsen. Hi, Chris, how you doing?
I'm good. We're glad to have you back. You froze there.
You froze up for a minute there, yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm good. This card, I don't hate this card. It's kind of a pain because a lot of the favorites, and we'll get into it, and even some of the favorites I like, it's like, well, I like this fight and they should win, but do I really want to pay this much money or in lines lay this much price? So, you know, we'll have some interesting discussion, I think, that's for sure.
Yes, you do want to pay $6,900 for Patrick Cummins, but we will get there. Joe, I know you're excited for UFC 230 just like I am, but
yes.
How are you feeling about UFC Moncton?
Well, you know, for those of you that don't follow me on Twitter, I have a theory. Twitter. I have a theory that Dana White, you know, Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby were sitting around smoking a J and eating some White Castles, and they all started getting giddy, and they said, let's spin the globe and let Dana put his finger on the globe, and wherever his finger lands, that's where we'll hold the next UFC event. Moncton? Like, where in the hell is Moncton? So I'm a little
Moncton are pretty upset right now.
I'm a little upset. I'm a little upset that we had to wait 3 weeks for this card. But you know, as is such the demand right now that we've all like we've gone back to our normal lives for the last 3 weeks, and now we're back in UFC mode through the end of the year. So I'm happy about that. I picked up my second Q in the last card, although it was pretty uneventful. Other than that, did not get a share of the big money. That was our good friend BD Holler, and A.E. Jones kills me. That guy hardly ever plays, and he steps in and takes down half the biggie last card. But anyway, let's move it.
Yep. So, I was going to jump in there, but you know, let's just move on. The podcast is brought to you, as I mentioned, by RotoWire. Go to rotowire.com/free 10-day free trial, no credit card required to all their usually paid content, season-long NFL, all sports, daily fantasy, optimizers, all the good stuff. Check it out over there at RotoWire. The quick plug for us, even though he won't admit it, never will. You probably should follow Joe on Twitter at Sunsu. Chris is at Real Quick Chris Olsen. I am at the DFS Sniper with one S. Let's dig in. Stevie Ray, 8,300, taking on Jessin Ayari at 7,900. The odds on this fight, Stevie Ray is the favorite at -155. Jessin Ayari plus 135. A fight that I think is interesting to break down from a betting perspective, but I think we're starting off the night.
Oh, there he goes.
Oh, there he goes again.
Big giant.
You just froze up again, dude.
Did I?
Yeah. You said big giant. Oh, now you're frozen again.
All right.
Now you're back.
You're back.
Okay.
Should
I kicked it over. I kicked it over to Chris, but we got all kinds of problems. So I'll set that up one more time, and there's a little overlap. My apologies. Stevie Ray 83, Jessin Ayari 7,900. Stevie Ray is the favorite -155. The comeback on Ayari is plus 135. Interesting fight in my mind from a betting perspective, but we're starting the card with a big giant DFS turd. And with that, I kicked it over to Chris.
Ah, yes. I was wondering what you said, and I couldn't agree more. No, I agree that this fight isn't much for DFS. I guess this is one of the favorites, I guess, that I like that I don't really like. I guess I'm taking Stevie Ray here. Ayari's just way too wide open. Darren Till was hammering him with counter left hands basically all fight. Jim Wallhead was hitting him with hard shots. He just leaves himself so wide open that it's hard to imagine that a technical boxer like Stevie Ray isn't going to find his shots in there. Ray's also strong in the clinch, and he is a wrestler, but anyone who's tried to out-wrestle him recently has succeeded. Cajun Johnson, Joe Lozon, but Joe Lozon couldn't sub him even after hammering him for about a round. And that's pretty much Ayari's best path to victory. So I feel pretty good about that. I think Stevie Ray could hit him with something hard here to change the course of the fight and maybe a finish, but that might be too idealistic. So I'm just going to go Ray by decision.
Joe, how about for you?
Okay, so let's talk narrative. 517 days since Ayari fought Darren Till. Rumor has it he got married, second cousin to Claudia Schiffer. He is, his inactivity, the fact that he's dropping a weight class. Now, let's talk Stevie Ray. Stevie Ray is how the mighty have fallen. 5-1 in the UFC, now coming off of 2 straight losses. He has done this camp at TriStar, which I like. He knows that his back is up against the wall. He knows that he needs to win, and he needs to win relatively impressively. He could theoretically be cut coming off 3 losses. I mean, you could be cut in the UFC coming off 2 losses. I think that's a provision in most contracts. So he definitely has his back up against the wall. And for that reason, I am picking Stevie Ray.
Yeah, I just want to, from a DFS perspective, I don't think this will be high volume. I like Ayari on the break, growing a little bit, younger fighter, and he's going to be a little bigger. I like him to edge a decision, but it's not a fight I'm really interested in for DFS. Moving on, Arjan Bhullar, 8,800, or I should say Arjan I got omoplated by Adam Wojciech. Bhullar taking on Marcelo Golm at 7,400. I think we're starting to get a little bit of odds value here on Golm. He's plus 130. Bueller's the favorite at minus 140. Odds value on heavyweights, probably better for GPP than tournaments. Golm, though, to me, what stands out is how he looked in the grappling exchanges against Tim Johnson, whereas Bhullar, just covered it. He's not a very exciting fighter. If he could get better ground and pound off, it'd be a whole different story with the wrestling he does have. But a really interesting fight, especially in GPPs. Joe, how do you have this one?
Okay, so Bhullar,
there you go.
Canadian wrestler. That's what we have to take into context here. Canadian Olympic wrestler. That's like being on the Jamaican bobsled team.
Was he even an Olympic wrestler? I thought he was Commonwealth Games.
No, Canada though. I mean, look, if he was either playing hockey or curling, I'd give this guy a lot of props, right? But he is a Canadian Olympic wrestler with no other skill set to MMA. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that Golm is a world beater, but he's got some stand-up. He's a more complete fighter. He's a relatively young guy. 7.4K, yes, I'll take it. Golm.
Chris?
I like Golm too, but now I feel compelled to defend Bhullar a little bit from that onslaught there. He's got quick hands. He uses good head movement. The problem is
His hands are terrible.
Compared to what? Quick hands compared to who?
Me.
Chucky on the Mayans? I mean, come on, really? Quick hands?
I don't know. Oh, is that the TV show? Yeah. No, he's got good. Look, he's got good, decent, fundamental boxing. But the problem is, but the problem is, as Sean said, that
you can't even make a case for this guy with a straight face. Come on.
No, because you're cracking up. I don't really understand what.
Do you really see something in Buellar's boxing?
You see something in his stand-up?
Golm has the stand-up. Buellar's got the wrestling and nothing else in my mind.
I think he uses good trunk movement. I think he doesn't have much in terms of striking. He just throws that overhand. But as far as is he pretty quick for a heavyweight? Yeah, he's pretty quick for a heavyweight. Now, if I can get to my analysis, please. The problem, as Sean alluded to, is, he doesn't have much ground and pound. He likes to sit in half guard when he gets takedowns. The problem isn't his wrestling. His wrestling is fine. It's what he does with it, which is pretty much nothing. And also, as Sean said, we saw very good things from him in the Timothy Johnson fight. This was a guy in Golm who previously had never been out of the first round, and then he had a big dude hanging on him for 3 rounds. He didn't look tired. He even, after the first round, ended up hurting Tim Johnson with a head kick. as far as kicking goes, that inside leg kick that he hurt Tim Johnson with, Bhullar gets hurt with those too. Golm's going to be the way more athletic guy, and as we've seen, he's not great on the ground jiu-jitsu, to put it mildly. So yeah, I'm going Golm too, but I just had to do a little bit of sticking up for my man Bhullar there, but I am taking Golm for the win here.
Bhullar.
I gotta dip into our chat, by the way. If you're listening to this to the RotoWire MMA stream on iTunes after the fact, we do these live on Friday nights. You should check us out on YouTube. We have a fun chat in there. A couple guys in there already. Somebody, who was it? Tyler Lee. Joe usually does Creating Alpha. I don't know if he's doing it this week. I would assume not.
Yeah, no alpha this week.
But he's pointing out that nobody gave you shit for your facial hair, and you always get on people for their facial hair.
Really? I mean, do I? No, I get on people. Do I get on people for that? Yeah, I guess I do.
Mostly Buddha.
Well, me, but I mean, I come on here looking like Survivor Man sometimes, so I understand.
I was just too lazy to shave. That's what happened, though. I'll tune it up.
All right, moving on. Kay Edwards, 9,400, taking on Don Madge, 6,800. Edwards is the large favorite. The live line, look here on Friday night, minus 450. Don Madge plus 400. If you could find tape on Don Madge, go ahead and send it my way, because I have a bunch of highlight videos. I will give a shout out to somebody in the MMA breakdown YouTube community in Will Martin. He's the only person I've listened to that could recall any of Madge's fights. I haven't listened to all my podcasts yet, but he made it sound like in a couple of Madge's fights he'd seen him quit before. And in some of the highlights I've seen, striking isn't that good, whereas I know what Edwards is. I love the Muay Thai there. And whenever I hear somebody quitting, it's not so much the technical breakdown, which, not that I don't respect Will and other people's opinion, but I like to look at that myself. But when you hear people are quitting in cages, like turning away from referees, calling timeout, that kind of stuff, that's beyond red flags. I don't need to see technique. I was already leaning Edwards, and now I have a really strong lean on Kay Edwards. The DraftKings prices, by the way, I think I did read them out, is 9,400 and 6,800. So the question is, can you afford Edwards, and do you need him? So for this fight, we're back to starting with Chris. Take it away.
Yeah, I would just like to say that there isn't a lot of full tape on Madge's recent fights. There, you can find his last fight against Dave Mazzani in parts. So you can find part 1 and part 2 on YouTube. He's a Muay Thai striker. He got good kicks. First let me say that I think that fight that he's referring to would be the first fight against the gentleman that he's lost 2-3 times, whose name I have forgotten. But that fight was an absolute war. Actually, if you haven't seen it, I suggest you go look for it. He took a really clean right hand in the 3rd round of a war and was kind of out on his feet. So I think it's a little bit unfair to say that he quit in that fight, if that's what he's referring to, but it sounds like it is. But in any event, so as I was saying, I think he has good kicks. My problem with him is he's a tough guy, I think, actually. My problem is that he has a little bit of Joe Lozon syndrome, by which I mean to cover with strikes, he kind of just shells up and waits for you to finish and then tries to fire back. He's gotten a little better with the defense lately, but not as good as I'd like to see. And, Edwards is just sort of a wild striker. You might not know it by looking at his fights because he finishes everybody by strikes in 1 round, but he's actually coming from a wrestling base here. He wrestled at Arizona State and Old Dominion, I believe. So, but he's one of those wrestlers that likes to strike. We see him a lot in MMA. He's got big power, and he's very sloppy. Madge could find a counter for him, but I just think that the way he stands in front as the Muay Thai striker and sort of shells up to block, and I think he's by far the hardest puncher that Madge has ever faced from what I've seen. I think eventually he's going to catch him and knock him out.
Joe?
Okay, narrative. We've got Edwards, D1 wrestler, MMA Lab, 24-second finish on the Dana White Contender Series.
God, I hate MMA Lab.
Against a guy who is a South African fighter. So what are we talking here? Garrett McClellan 2.0, Ruin Potts 2.0, lost to the same guy 3 times.
Do you
Actually,
happen to listen to the Loudmouth MMA podcast? It may have not come out quite
which
yet.
one?
The podcast I do with Kyle Steele, Loudmouth
Oh, no,
MMA.
not yet.
I got him rolling on the South African Gareth McClellan for a second.
I'm telling you, the Soldier Boy. So what do we got here? We got a guy who lost to the same fighter 3 times, comes out of South Africa, has some fame in places like Thailand where he's fought Muay Thai. But please, come on. I mean, I don't understand this matchmaking. Give me Edwards all day, every day. I just hope that he does rely on his wrestling a little bit more. It would be a shame to let a D1 wrestling pedigree go against South African striker, Ruin Potts 2.0. So give me Madge, give me Edwards.
Whoa, that was like, give me Madge after this long rant.
I wanted to see if everybody was awake.
Holy crap, that scared me.
Yeah.
Sarah Moras, 8,700, taking on Talita Bernardo at 7,500. The odds on this fight, let's see if they've closed, because minus 155 for Moras, plus 145 for Talita Bernardo. Bernardo's had 2 tough fights to start her UFC career, Irene Aldana and Marion Renault, I think it was.
Yeah, Marion Renault finished her, right?
The fight where she just totally gassed out. She's looked okay in parts of those fights. She's a good grappler. This fight, I'll let you guys do the more in-depth analysis for DraftKings, but for me, I'm simplifying it in that, to me, Sarah Moras, when I watch her fight, she's only dangerous with her grappling. That's what Talita Bernardo is the best at. There's no striking anywhere here, and I think Bernardo is the better grappler, so I instinctively gravitate right towards the favorite, or right towards the underdog here, especially at that price tag where she's, for cash games, she's still scoring 20 to 30 points in losses. Is Sarah Moras really going to catch an armbar in her via Ashley Evans-Smith? I have a hard time seeing that. Joe, what do you have for this fight?
Okay, so first of all, I should say one of the things that I really like about MMA is that it's not politically incorrect to state that a woman spends a lot of time on her back. Okay. Jesus. And that is Sarah Moras. Okay. She has got a horrific takedown defense. I believe 14%, maybe 16%. Okay. Now there is some narrative.
I thought it was.
There is some narrative here. She moved to Las Vegas, training at Extreme Couture, taking advantage of the PI. Misha Tate pops in and out. She looks a lot better than she's looked in the past. Like, if you look at that UFC profile photo, we're like, oh shit. Also, she's got the best nickname in female martial arts. Who doesn't like cheesecake? Anyway, so then we got Bernardo. Lost her first 2 fights in the UFC. Yes, tough competitors. Renault is tough even at 40. Aldana looked like a featherweight when she fought her. I remember commenting on that, how big and huge Aldana looked in that fight. So unless Moras gets an early finish, I don't like her that much on DK. Now, there is a chance that could happen, but if it doesn't, this could be a low-scoring, boring-ass fight. Maybe you have a few shares of Bernardo. I don't know what the field is going to be, but I'm likely going to be underweight to this fight as a whole.
See, I think there's going to be grappling in this fight. I think there'll be transitions, maybe a reversal or two, and I like Bernardo's top game. But that's me, Chris. Well, Joe, who are you picking to win the fight?
I'm going to pick Moras. I'm going to, by default almost, because of some of the narrative that I like, I'm going to pick Moras to win.
All right, break the tie, Chris.
Yeah, I'm. All your concerns about Moras are warranted. I think they're Sean, but there's just nothing about Bernardo that I actually like when I watch her fight.
You don't like her relentless grappling and her ability to find.
What's relentless about it? She wrestles from her knees. She
always finds a way to end up on top, even against Aldana, who is a featherweight size. You have to like her ability to land on top.
She was on top of Renault, and she kept getting her neck stuck in triangles and kept trying to have to fight out of them. I just don't see it. I think that both of them aren't good strikers, but Moras is more aggressive, and I think that might be enough on the feet. Bernardo's striking is basically just let yourself get walked down, stay in the corner, and once every 5 or 10 seconds throw a big overhand counter. And I don't think that's going to be enough. As far as the wrestling goes, as I said, Bernardo wrestles from her knees. She literally gets on her knees to wrestle. She gasses out terribly. There was literally a point in that and I think in the third round of that of the fight with Renault, where she was on a single leg, and Renault was able to just stand up and put her leg down and sit on her back and take her back that way because she just didn't move.
Exhausted, yeah.
That's how tired she was.
I think you are really overestimating Moras' ability to stop even in a shot from the knees.
But even if she can, she's going to be extremely active from her guard, and we've seen Bernardo already have problems with an active guard. So I just don't see. Thank you, Joe. So I just don't. So I really don't see where her major advantage is. Like maybe like on mat jiu-jitsu, she has a big advantage, but we haven't seen any like great jiu-jitsu from her in the octagon. So
you guys are going to let me have Bernardo by submission as my hot take?
That would be that's burning my fingers right now. Just
all you. Yeah.
Rear naked choke round number 1.
So you're picking Moras, right?
I am picking Moras emphatically.
Good. I think it's time to move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Calvin Kattar, 9,100, taking on Chris. I almost called him Curtis. I don't know why. Chris Fishgold at 7,100. Kattar is the large favorite in this one. Of course, they closed best fight odds. Let's open that back up. I was looking for something to back me up in the last argument, and I kind of just moved past it. Kattar's minus 250. That is thankfully closing from where it was. It opened up at some ridiculous number. Fishgold plus 230. It held about firm. I thought Kattar was around the minus 350. Either way, it's still a little too wide for me. Kattar, good boxing. Fishgold coming from Cage Warriors, making his UFC debut. The one thing he has is relentless grappling. If Chris disagrees with that, I might just hang up on this call. Really ugly striking to get to it, and that's where Kattar is really good. Kattar, good movement, great boxing. Closer fight than the line would indicate. I'm going to pick Kattar, but I think Fishgold's actually alive to pull a major upset here. Chris?
Yeah, no, I agree with you on this. Just so I want to save the call. I want to keep talking. So I agree with you on this. Yeah, the line is kind of weird. I don't think Fishgold's any kind of world beater. As you alluded to, his striking is basically just winging wild hooks, trying to get his opponent to the fence so that he can get a takedown. But, Kattar, I mean, he does have the boxing, so you would expect him to be able to keep distance and maybe land a big counter there, and maybe he can. But he does tend to get hit a lot in his fights. And, we haven't really seen him tested in wrestling. We saw him stuff a couple takedowns from Andre Fili. I don't put too much. I mean, it's good that he did it, but I'm not prepared to say that nobody can take him down because he stuffed takedowns from Andre Fili. I think that Fishgold is definitely live here. I mean, there's not a lot to his game, but I'll be curious to see if Kattar can keep himself at a safe distance and keep Fishgold off of him. But because Fishgold's going to come right after him, I think he's certainly live. I'm actually going to pick Fishgold because I just think this is a question that Kattar needs to answer. And so let's say Fishgold by round 2 submission.
Wow, that's a pretty hot take, Joe.
Well, it's interesting because usually when I hear like European wrestling, it makes me cringe. In mixed martial arts, I mean, you've got a UK fighter who is very unique in the fact that he relies on wrestling and grappling to get the majority of his wins and not striking. It's very unusual for a UK fighter. Someone who I respect and who we've had as a guest before, our good friend Newsom MMA, who did a killer pod this week with Nana Fernanda. Wow. Props there. He actually picked, he said he has Kattar as a top 5 featherweight, yet he still picked Fishgold to win this fight. So that had me kind of looking at Fishgold a little bit, and I'm thinking, you're right, Kattar has never faced a wrestler, a true wrestler in the UFC, right? I mean, you can't take too much away from his loss to Moicano because we all know how good Moicano is. I mean, he essentially was a bad fight IQ moment away from beating Brian Ortega. So, look, I am still going to pick the Boston finisher here just because I think he does have a real distinct advantage with his hands. And if Fishgold cannot get him down, if he cannot use his wrestling and grappling, if Kattar has takedown defense. I think it could be a bruising light for Fishgold. So I'm going to pick Kattar, but I think this is an interesting fight. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, next up, Nasrat Haqparast, 9,700, taking on Thibault Gouti, 6,500. This is where we can make up a little bit of time, fellas. The line on this fight, Nasrat Haqparast is a minus 750 favorite. Thibault Gouti plus 600. I believe Gauti's on a 4-fight losing streak.
I think 3, but I'm not sure.
He's been finished a bunch. Haqparast is a real deal prospect. This could get real ugly. I got Haqparast by early KO. Joe?
Yeah, so we got, Kelvin Gastelum's doppelganger here.
Kelvin Gastelum, who eats properly.
Yeah, who eats properly. Personal invitation by GSP to train in his invitation-only camp. A little bit of narrative there. I don't understand what the UFC is thinking here. He came off a very impressive win against an athletic prospect in Mark Diakase. This is a step down. I'm not sure I understand the matchmaking here. But yeah, the only issue here is if this fight goes into the second round, we're probably not going to see takedowns. It's going to be striking at 9.7K. You better get. See, here's the thing. You want a first round finish, but you want a first round finish towards the end of the first round. I hate having to root for fights like that because if he takes him down with one punch, you're not going to get 11, 12X, right? So you want him to beat him a bit, and then towards the end of the first round, get the KO. So that's the only pause that I have from a DraftKings perspective with our good friend Hap here. Otherwise, look, Gouti's got a puncher's chance. He's a tough guy. Throw him in a lineup if you're playing a bunch, but I think if you can afford him and if you could make your lineups work, you got to put Hap in there.
Absolutely, Chris.
Yeah, I just have to say one thing. Gouti should have won that Sage Northcutt fight.
He did win that fight.
But there you go.
Yeah.
There are certain fighters I would pick Gouti against because he's like heart attack come forward and he really puts you on your heels. And for a guy who doesn't have good lateral movement, not good footwork, he could really trap you and then put you into some tough decisions. But this could really be a Chad Laprise situation where he just backs up, hits him with a counter hook, and knocks him out. I think Haqparast is way too athletic. He's way too good of a striker. We saw Gouti try to wrestle Sage Northcutt in his last fight. Didn't go well. He didn't really seem to know what to do when he had him actually down. So, yeah, there's not too much here. I just think Haqparast is all around better, and I think he probably gets the finish.
Yeah, it's really not a need to dig too far into that fight. Let's move on to Nordine Taleb, 8,200, taking on Sean Strickland, 8,000. Interested, actually, the line on this fight. I haven't looked in a little while because Strickland was a decent size. Well, he was a small dog early in the week.
Small odds value, I think, on this at 8K.
Where the hell did it go? I can never find the odd for the fight I'm looking for. Minus 105 a piece. We are at a pick'em. I like Strickland here. I think Taleb is getting old at 38 years old. He also, the problem really is just that Strickland's got a good jab, good wrestling. I think it's more past to victory. I'll let these guys take it away. Chris, we'll start with you guys. I will be right back.
All right. I actually think this is a really good spot for Nordine Taleb, especially at that price. I think Nordine Taleb is a little different from a lot of Muay Thai strikers you see. We talked about Don Madge earlier, how he stands in front. Taleb doesn't. Taleb's actually really good at sliding out of the way of strikes. What I really see here, what I really like is Strickland holds his chin up really high, and Nordine Taleb likes to head kick, and I think that's a pretty good recipe here. We even saw that Court McGee was hitting Sean Strickland with head kicks. He obviously got finished by a head kick from Zaleski dos Santos, and I really see maybe a finish materializing. The problem with Strickland, if you like Strickland here, is he's not a finisher. He's what other people have called, and I quite like this term, he fights like he's sparring. He pops the jab in your face, moves away, pops a jab in your face, moves away, and that's about it. I really don't see him. The problem is he has to win all 3 rounds if he's going to win this, and I think he has a good shot of getting knocked out before that happens. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take Nordine Taleb. I remembered his name. There you go. I'm going to go ahead and take Nordine Taleb, possibly by 2nd or 3rd round finish.
Yeah, I guess the way that I see this is, one, it's one of the closest fights on the card. I mean, there's a small amount of odds value in Strickland. Taleb is, tri-star points fighter, longtime fighter. I'm glad you mentioned his kicks, because that's one aspect to his game that could potentially give Strickland some trouble. I think this is probably a better fight to bet than it would be to play on DraftKings, because unless you do get that kind of flash knockout, I don't see a lot of points being scored in this fight. And I do think that your odds values players will gravitate towards Strickland. Now, truth be told, I'm going to pick Strickland here, and I have some parlays tied up to Strickland in DraftKings Sportsbook. I got some free bets, and I put Strickland in some parlays. But it's a very close fight. I mean, I could see it going either way. I give the nod to Strickland. I think he's the younger guy. I think his gas tank is better. I'm going to say he wins a close decision.
So you think he's just going to basically stick the jab in his face and point fight?
Again, that's one of my concerns, right? Because Taleb is a tri-star point fighter. So I could certainly see we have one of those situations like we had with Tamor, where the referee had to come in and say, guys, we got to fight here. I'm afraid that we could see something like that. I'm on Strickland here. The age, the fact that I think he's got a slight speed advantage. Yes, he could get chewed up with kicks. But I think, I've been hearing really good things coming out of his camp. And I'm going to give him the nod here.
All right. And I will take over for the next fight since Sean is still indisposed. So the next fight is, as I pull it up, Alex Garcia versus Court McGee. Garcia can be had for $8,500. Court McGee can be had for $7,700. I will give my pick later, but Joe, I'm going to kick it to you first. Who do you like in this match?
Yeah, this is interesting. You've got, a guy who has been alternating wins and losses recently, did not look his best against LaFleur. Pretty good hands, good wrestling. Everybody thought, when he came up, he was going to be the next big thing. Another tri-star guy. He's so muscular that he tends to gas. So this is an interesting fight for GPPs, because one thing that McGee does have, and what a lot of people don't realize, is McGee actually beat Robert Whittaker at welterweight, which is, boggles my mind. He is only 33 years old, but his life is such that in people years, in dog years, in drug years, he could be in his 50s. So what he does have, though, is a lot of cardio. He can grind you out. So if McGee can survive, an early onslaught by Garcia, he can make this interesting. I think this is kind of an interesting fight. However, if Garcia goes out and bum rushes him and slams him down, he's got a power wrestling game. He's got good hands. If he could work McGee early, I can see him getting an early finish, which is why I think this is kind of an interesting fight for GPPs, because you could get it. It's not inconceivable you can get an early finish by Garcia at his price. What is he, 8.6?
He is 8.5.
8.5. And, if you want to go the other way, you could get kind of a grindy, grappling-based decision out of Court McGee. So I think this could be a very interesting mid-range fight to play. I won't go as far to say target, because there's certainly some risk, and you never know what you're going to get out of Garcia. But I think this could be an interesting GPP fight. My pick is Garcia.
Well, I agree with you about Court's stamina. I actually remember a while back that they were doing like a profile on him, and he does something very interesting. He gets himself tired, and then he grapples because he wants to know what it feels like when he's in there tired and grappling. So yeah, he can go for days. And he's got a pressuring boxing style on the feet. He likes to work body head, which I like. But the reason I give the nod to Garcia here is because I think the wrestling is going to play, and I think your point about Garcia gassing is noted, but I actually think he's been better in the last couple of fights. The LaFleur fight, easy for me to say. The LaFleur fight, he grappled a lot, didn't really seem to get tired. His fight before that, who was against who? Was against King Kung Fu Muslim Salikov. He grappled a lot in that fight as well. Welcome back, Sean.
Back. Where are we at? What fight did I miss?
Chris is giving his pick now on Garcia, Court McGee.
If it's not Garcia, I don't want to talk to you.
It's Garcia.
It's Garcia.
But yeah, so I think he wrestled Salikov a lot and ended up finishing him there. He didn't look tired in that fight in the second round. I actually think there's an argument to be made that his gas tank is getting better. On the feet, there's not too much to see. He's a big overhand right, and if he connects, you're going to sleep. But if not, it's going to be a boring fight. But I think he can use his wrestling here. Court McGee is a wrestler himself, but can get taken down. I think Alex Garcia is going to be stronger. And Court McGee's a tough dude, as I said. So it might be tough to get a finish here, which might steer you away in cash. But I don't know. I just like Alex Garcia to sort of dominate the wrestling, and I think that's the way it's going to go.
Yep.
All right. I'm also obviously picking Garcia. Mentioning McGee coming off that torn labrum is one of the biggest red flags for me in the fight.
That's a good point. I didn't even mention that.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
All right. Next up, Gian Villante, 9,000, taking on Ed Herman, 7,300. I can't believe we have to pay 9,000 for Gian Villante, but I can't swear on this podcast. He's actually in play at that price, and it's really, really, really upsetting to me. Minus 230, plus 210 is the comeback on Herman. Look, both these guys aren't very good. This could be really sloppy and boring in that they could both gas out and just throw awful punches at each other in the third round. Ultimately, I do think Villante is a little better. Herman, a long layoff. He's dealing with injuries, that gruesome finger injury. He's closer to being done for me than Villante, who at least has been shown, he's shown some durability. So give me Gian Villante in a GPP special fight. Since Chris ended the last fight, I'm just going to assume he's going to lead us off here.
Yes, you are correct, sir. And this is brutal for me. I can't pick
everyone.
I can't pick Gian Villante to win a fight. I'm sorry.
I get it. I understand. I understand.
I just think look, Gian Villante is it's funny because he's a pressure fighter, and usually when you say that, he's either a pressure striker or a pressure counter fighter. But Gian Villante is not really either of those things. He just sort of pressures, and then that's it, and lets the opponent strike. Every once in a while, he'll come with an overhand right or a 1-2, and that's basically it. The reason Pat Cummins was able to beat him so soundly was because Pat Cummins figured out that if I just duck under, I can counter, and he's not going to do anything. There's not very many fighters more limited than Gian Villante. He threw some kicks in the Sam Alvey fight. I'm guessing that was because he thought maybe the head kick was there because Sam keeps his hands so low. I've never really seen him throw that many kicks before, or at least not in a long time. I think he's basically just an overhand right and sometimes a 1-2. And I think that, Ed Herman is, he's so wide open. He gets hit hard in every single fight. I understand this. But he also, he's a good pressure fighter. He's got good accurate hooks when he actually throws them for how wild he throws them. He's good in the clinch. We saw him finish Tim Boach there. If he does get a takedown, he's got good top jiu-jitsu. With the acknowledgement that either one of these fighters could go at any minute, I'm gonna take the dog here, and I'm gonna say Herman by knockout.
Ooh.
All right. Whatever. Joe?
Yeah, well, look, there's not Villante at 9K. I mean, we're not talking a high fight IQ here. I mean, this is a guy who, when his SO told him she was having triplets, he demanded to know who the other two guys were. I mean, this is not a real smart guy. I mean, it's hard. Look, I mean, are we going to get like the Ed Herman who finished Bosch a few years ago? Do I pick Ed Herman by a 9-finger go-go choke? What do I do? The guy's a finger short. Does that mean he can't grip anymore? I don't know. Look, I hate to do this. This is gonna be a pork chop for me, but I gotta pick Villante here. I can't pick Herman. I'm gonna be underweight to him. If he beats me in DraftKings at 9K, more power to him. I will have a few shares of the fight, but it's hard for me to back him.
Yeah. All right, next up, Andre, even worse fight IQ than Gian Villante, Soukhamthath, 8,600, taking on Jonathan Martinez at 7,600. Short notice fight for Martinez. Soukhamthath, if you don't know what I'm referring to, it's the fact that he once knocked an opponent down 3 times in a fight and got a draw because he refused to go for a finish, and then just had to stand up and get a TKO win against Sean O'Malley when he tore his foot up and grappled with him for I couldn't tell you what reason. Soukhamthath, by the way, obviously is the favorite in this fight, -150, plus 140 for Martinez. These guys are going to stand and trade. It should be a really fun fight. Ultimately, I do think Soukhamthath is the more polished striker. Should also be a little bit bigger in this fight for what it's worth. This is at 135. Yeah, give me Andre Soukhamthath, 8,600. Joe?
Yeah, again, look. Martinez, by the way, it's not really a short notice fight for him in the sense that he was training for a fight that he was supposed to have about a week ago. My biggest issue is that, one, he's only been training for about 4 years, Martinez. Soukhamthath will have a size and athleticism advantage. Definitely more experience, better technical striker. It's just hard. It's just hard to be overly confident in a guy who I think his only win in the UFC is what, against Luke Sanders, right? Who is also no Mensa candidate. So I'm gonna pick. It's gonna kill me, but I'm gonna pick Soukhamthath here.
Chris?
Yeah, back to back. Soukhamthath is another guy I can't pick to win a fight in the UFC. He's just my problem with him. I mean, he's a good technical boxer, but he's just so passive. He just lets his opponent dictate the fight. Going into that Sean O'Malley fight, I was stunned by how many people were actually picking Soukhamthath, and O'Malley just did what everybody does to him, which is walk him down and basically have his way. Soukhamthath came forward a little bit in the 3rd round because he knew he needed to.
He could have won that fight by simply asking for the stand-up.
By standing up, yeah.
He could have won the fight. His corner was screaming. Like, I don't know what language they were screaming in, but all he had to do was ask for that fight to be stood up, and it's over.
Now, in all fairness, he had just gotten hit before that, so he might have been rocked. We don't know, whatever. Suffice to say, there might be some questions there. But, he's a counterpuncher. He's a counterpuncher with some power, but he just allows himself to get led. And Jonathan Martinez has got a good kicking game, and if Soukhamthath tries to try his wrestling, he's got a good game off his back. In fact, the first 2 fights I saw from Martinez were subs off his back. I think they're his 2 most recent ones. He also has a really ridiculous, blatant head kick or head knee DQ when he fought Matt Schnell, who was probably his toughest opponent to this point. But, I mean, it sounds weird because even the tape that's there on Martinez isn't much. But for me, it's enough. I don't know. I'm taking Martinez for the win here.
All right, let's get down to business. Misha Cirkunov, 9,300, taking on Patrick Cummins at 6,900. Cirkunov -320. Cummins, the comeback on him is +290. I like Patrick Cummins to pull off big upset here, +290. My reasoning is that Misha Cirkunov, really his defensive wrestling is not good. I remember when he was taken down by Nikita Krylov, he got a wonky. Was knocked out really just oddly against Volkan Ozdemir, which, by the way, he was a -260 favorite in that fight. It opened at minus 260. It closed at minus 550. He was a huge favorite and got knocked out there. Then against Glover, couldn't stop a takedown, and he got I think that was the ground and pound KO. Patrick Cummins, I know, just got out grappled by Corey Anderson. I still think Cummins is the better wrestler than Misha Cirkunov. I think that's what he needs to have. Also, I think Cirkunov will slow down. We've seen Cummins show heart, move forward. I'm not saying go all in on this play, but I like it. There was a pick'em fight at minus 110. There's no way I would bet it, obviously, but I still think my pick to win the fight, I would lean Patrick Cummins. I do not like what I've seen from Misha Cirkunov at all. His UFC wins, by the way, Daniel Jolly, Alex Nicholson. He beat Krylov, didn't he?
Krylov doesn't look nearly as good considering what Blankowitz did to Krylov.
And so, like, I have serious problems with Misha Cirkunov, and you take into account the price, $6,900. Sign me up, Chris. I'm taking you a role this week. We talked about this in the open. I'm going a little off the rails here. You gonna join me? Come on, come over.
No, you're in outer space somewhere. Stop it. Look, I can't.
You know how I usually feel.
I think I said. Look, I mentioned the Pat Cummins John Villante fight before. The only one more limited in his stand up than Pat Cummins is John Villante, and that's why Cummins won. There's one big adjustment that Corey Anderson had to make to deal with Pat Cummins' stand-up, and it was throw an uppercut, because all Pat Cummins ever does is dip in and then try to throw like an overhand or a straight punch. It's terrible. It gets him tagged every single time. Cirkunov has good straight punches. He's got a good kicking game. Cummins hasn't even shown himself to be that successful of a wrestler in the octagon of late. And even if he does take him down, I mean, let's not forget that sub that he got off Cirkunov was off his back. It was a guillotine. He had rocked him first, but, I mean, who's to say that can't happen here? It certainly can. Yeah, look, I like Patrick Cummins. I think he's got a lot of heart. I like watching him fight, and I like rooting for him. But he's a punching bag, and I can't pick a punching bag, so I'm going with Misha Cirkunov.
This punching bag's about to out-grapple Cirkunov. I'm just trying to stir up trouble here. Joe?
Well, okay, so look, I see both sides of this, right? There is some strong narrative that says fade Cirkunov. However, there's some more recent narrative on Cirkunov. He has finally gotten off his ass and moved out of his no-name single-person camp in Canada to Las Vegas, taking advantage of the PI, training at Extreme Couture. He has finally got guys to practice with. I mean, his growth was retarded. I mean, I still don't understand. It looked like, you know, Oktadamir barely touched him and he went down. However, you know, I'm going to give him one more chance here.
There you go.
I think this is a guy that the UFC is invested in. I like the camp change. I think it's long overdue. I see Sean's side, 6.9K, very attractive, better wrestler. I gotta give him one more shot here. I mean, again, I don't think I'm going to be so heavy on this fight, but I got to give him one more shot. I'll break the tie with Cirkunov.
All right, let's move on to our co-main event of the evening. Michael Johnson, 9,500, taking on Artem Lobov, 6,700. Johnson, the big favorite, he missed weight by 1 pound. Artem Lobov says he's going to give him his 20% back.
Class move.
Which is nice. Johnson, minus 575, Lobov plus 485. We all wanted to see Lobov to kick off, but we have Lobov Johnson. Look, for me, the only way Lobov wins this fight is he gets the crap beat out of him for a round and a half, and Johnson gasses out, similar to the Gaethje fight. That's the way I see this going down. Johnson, big weight cut. Clearly tried to make the weight. Also, you know, we've seen Johnson fade before, and we've seen Lobov's toughness. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. That being said, it's hard not to take Michael Johnson here in a striking match. His weaknesses are grappling and cardio. the cardio could be exploited, but he hit so damn hard. I have a hard time seeing Johnson not winning this fight outside of that, empties the gas tank against Lobov kind of scenario. Joe?
Look, I mean, this all of Johnson's marquee wins are at lightweight. We should get that out of the way. This is only his second fight at featherweight, and he came within 1 pound of making weight. Props, kudos. I'm a little concerned about, I'd rather have a guy miss by a lot than a little, especially on a short notice fight. He's going to have such a hand speed advantage. And get this, Lobov is definitely the pterodactyl arm kid. Johnson's going to have an 8-inch reach advantage here, right? With his hand speed and his power. My only concern is, to your point, Sean, is that if this drags on, Johnson gets a little tired. I don't know that it's going to be enough for Lobov to win, but not getting the finish at his price, and not using wrestling all that much and getting takedowns. I mean, just standing and striking. Now, we saw when he fought Cub Swanson, there was a lot of strikes that were exchanged in that fight, and that actually ended up being a pretty good fight to stack, if I can remember. So there's that possibility, but I have to pick Johnson here. I can't. I mean, I'd say tread with caution, because if he doesn't get the relatively early finish, he could get tired, and it could, be a relatively low-scoring decision, because I don't see how much he's going to allow Lobov to hit him with that 8-inch reach advantage. But my pick is Johnson.
Chris?
Yeah, boy, I didn't even realize it really until we're going through, but there are some profoundly weird matchmaking on this card.
Shit.
I know this one is sort of a special circumstance because, right. But I mean, boy, look, I have none of the concerns you guys are speaking of. The only concern I might have is if he doesn't get the finish, because Lobov's tough. But as far as Lobov winning the fight, I just can't even imagine it. I mean, the reach you mentioned, the hand speed you mentioned, it's going to be the hardest puncher he's ever fought to. What Lobov does is basically a very, 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 very worse version of what Justin Gaethje tries to do, which is pressure you, and use those leg kicks, and he tries to draw out counters like his buddy Conor McGregor, but of course he is not Conor McGregor. I think this is probably the worst matchup imaginable for somebody like Lobov, and I think Johnson's going to dominate him. The only thing you have to decide for yourself as a DK player is if he will get the money.
No, the worst matchup was Tukakov. This is actually a better matchup for Lobov.
I don't know about that. Maybe.
I do.
They're not doing him any favors.
Tukakov would have taken him down and just beaten the ever-living piss out of him. At least here I see a path to victory.
Wow.
All right.
You're walking the path alone, I think. But
no, I wouldn't. I'm not picking him here. I'm still picking Johnson. Let's make that very clear. I actually have an easier time seeing it than I did against Tukakov. Anyway, Volkan Ozdemir, 8,400, taking on Anthony Lionheart-Smith, 7,800. Couple things to talk about here. The line on this fight, by the way, Ozdemir -160, Anthony Smith +150. Couple things I want to address. First, we'll give fight picks each, and then how do we play this on DraftKings, which is what we're here for. I see a lot of people putting a lot of money on Volkan Ozdemir, and I think you're out of your friggin' mind.
Ooh.
I'm picking Anthony Smith to win the fight. I'm not overly confident where I'm going to go bet 4 or 5 units on it, but for the love of God, guys, Ozdemir has two of the weirdest knockouts you're going to see. Anthony Smith has at least shown toughness. We've seen holes in Ozdemir's game. I understand picking Ozdemir. I get it. I guess I know Smith isn't a world beater and light heavyweight is just really weak. To say this guy's a lock at these odds, I can't quite get there. Smith can wrestle if he wants to. Ozdemir, I don't think he has this ungodly power. I think there's a couple of weird knockouts. He had the weird one against Cirkunov up against the cage. The one against Manoa, I think, you brought up Newsom earlier. He mentioned his podcast, and it was a great point. I went back and rewatched it at lunch today. Manoa's head bounces off the canvas in the knockout, and I kind of think that was the biggest part of that, is the way it could have been a flash knockdown, and Manoa's head hit the ground, and that put him out. I don't think Ozdemir has some kind of ungodly power. I think he is the more overrated of these two guys. I know Smith is coming off wins over deteriorated legends. He hung in there against Thiago Santos. He's a tough dude. He's actually bigger than Ozdemir, if I saw right, which is freaking bizarre because Smith used to cut to 185, which is craziness. I like Smith to win a close fight. That's my pick in terms of I think the stack is in play. I'm bouncing back and forth whether it's stack or not. It comes down to how confident I am in my other fight versus this fight. The stack is in play. I haven't made a final decision where I'm going to go with it. And in GPPs, obviously target both sides. The UFC is building this up as 22 seconds fastest knockout for Smith versus 15 for Ozdemir. Light heavyweights. One of these guys at this price likely ends up in the optimal lineup, especially the way they both usually fight. So that's how I'm breaking down those three components. Let's start with Chris for this one.
Yeah, it's just so weird to me to see Anthony Smith in this position. I remember not too long ago, people weren't sure if he would beat Elvis Sinisic. And
light heavyweight, man, light heavyweight.
No, I know, I understand. Which is another funny thing because we just saw him lose to Thiago Santos at middleweight now, right? Now Santos is at light heavyweight, so we'll see. But yeah, I know that Anthony Smith can do it. We saw him actually counterpunch better in that Shogun Rua fight, but Ozdemir is going to be a lot faster than Shogun Rua was. Ozdemir is going to really crowd him. He's going to really take that range away. Ozdemir does swing wild punches some, so it's not impossible that Anthony Smith catches him with a counter somewhere. And it's also not impossible that Ozdemir gasses out because he even looked a little tired after that first burst in the Cormier fight. Like the second half of that round, he was looking a little tired. That might have been a conscious decision to pull back to maybe conserve himself. But be as it may, I got to pick Ozdemir here because I just don't think that Anthony Smith is gonna get the fight he wants, where it's either going to be at range or in the clinch. I think Ozdemir is good in the clinch. I think he's strong there. He was kind of pushing around DC in the clinch for a minute there. So I do think he's strong. And I just think, unless he gasses out, which is a real possibility, I just think the pressure and the power is going to be too much, and he's got no time. So
how about cash games versus GPPs? Let's do a little DraftKings specific breakdown here.
All right. Yeah, you know what? I think that I don't know. I think that Smith might be safe in cash, I guess, because he's a tough dude, as you said, and he's got a knack for late finishes. Even if he doesn't get finishes, he might go to war. So he could he could get you a lot of points even in a loss. So he might have a good floor in that sense. Ozdemir might be a little tough in cash just because, as I said, he's shown signs that he might gas, and we don't know that for sure, but it sure looked like that to me. So I would say Ozdemir is your better GPP play, even if I like him to win the fight.
Joe?
Wow. The only thing I know for certain about Anthony Smith is that he should be on trial for elder abuse, which constitutes his 2 wins at light heavyweight. I love Volkan at 8.4K. It is either my strongest play on the card or one of my strongest plays on the card. I'll be overweight to him in GPPs. The inside the distance prop is really good on this fight. I will have a few shares of Anthony Smith because anything can happen. I just love Ozdemir here. I think if he's minus 160 now, that's a steal.
Are you just fading Anthony Smith, or what have you? I haven't seen anything in Ozdemir.
I think it's a combination of, other than Daniel Cormier. I mean, he's won his UFC fights. He took that short notice fight against OSP and won, even though it was close. To me, Anthony Smith, look, I love the guy, right? He just, beating, 2 guys who are severely diminished, and saying that might be an understatement. He hasn't proven anything yet at light heavyweight, right? So I see the quality of the competition better. I see the power as being better. I just think this is a steal at minus 160. I think he should be a minus 250 to 300 favorite in this fight. If I was setting the line, that's what I would make it at. So I am all in on Volkan here. I will have a few shares of Anthony Smith just because I am not playing any cash this week. So I should say that right off the bat. That's why I would not stack this fight, because I see this as a GPP card. I see lots of variance. I will have a few shares of Anthony Smith, but I am going to be more highly weighted at 8.4K to Volkan.
I think we're in a little bit of trouble.
I wouldn't go that far as minus 300, but I will say that Anthony Smith has a tendency to be losing fights until he wins them. That includes his fight against Hector Lombard, and you just don't want to be betting with, I should say, a guy who wins like that frequently, because eventually the worm's going to turn.
I mean, winner of 5 of his last 6, but I hear what you're saying. We'll see. And you know what? All 6 of his 6 straight fights that have ended by knockout. He's got 5 of them. He was knocked out by Thiago Santos. So that's interesting. It definitely is a GPP fight and card. All right, let's go to hot takes. Let's wrap it up. Did mine earlier. Talita Bernardo by a first round submission. I'm going to call a rear naked choke.
Okay, this is going to be strange because I probably have picked more favorites than underdogs here, but I have a sneaking suspicion that there will be more dogs winning than favorites on this card, just because of the variance that I see. Although, again, that does run somewhat counterintuitive to me selecting favorites. There are a lot of my picks are lukewarm. I should say that right off the top. There's a few people that I'm confident in, but a vast number of these fights I could see going either way. So my hot take is going to be dogs 7, favorites 6.
Chris?
I had a couple to choose from, but I think it might be fun to go up against you directly. So I'm going to say Sarah Moras by second round triangle choke.
Woo.
No way.
Absolutely.
I would be stunned.
Absolutely.
All right, those are the hot takes. That's it for Fight IQ for UFC Moncton. UFC 230 coming up next. Make sure and click on the subscribe button on YouTube. Thumbs up the video. If you're listening after the fact, subscribe on iTunes, and then jump over and subscribe to RotoWire on YouTube. Make sure to go to rotowire.com/free, 10-day free trial, no credit card required, checking out all their premium content. You have all our info. Contact us on Twitter, follow us, ask us any questions. Guys, good luck in your contest. Everybody watching, we appreciate you.
And we will have some news next week, but Sean and I will be live tweeting from UFC 230. We will share the deets next Friday when we do the pod, but we will be live tweeting from UFC 230 at MSG.
Fuck yes. I know I shouldn't have swore just there, but that's how excited I am. My apologies if anyone's offended, but I am gonna go watch Mr. Hot Balls take on the champ.
Oh yeah.
All right. Guys, take care. We'll see you next week.
Take care.
Bye-bye.